Today I want to talk about E.F. Schumacher. I was first introduced to the German-born economist who moved to England away from Nazi Germany in the 1930s, who has influenced the whole world in a different way of looking at economics. His book, Small is Beautiful, I found that in my father's library in my late teens, early 20s, and I found it fascinating in terms of how he approached technology and economics in a different way. He introduced a concept of appropriate technology. Small is Beautiful talked about uh, small, simple technologies, appropriate technologies for, especially for the developing world, that can evolve using locally available materials in energy production, in cooking, and a whole range of other areas. So the Small is Beautiful also introduces concept of Buddhist economics, and I was fascinated by that because how can we marry economics and Buddhism? And his way of doing it was how can we look at the area of economics through the lens of compassion, through the lens of our oneness with nature. So that also meant moving away from large scale, big projects to small, appropriate ways of doing things where we cause minimal harm to the environment and to each other. So that was an eye opener for me as I was studying engineering technology at the time. Um, Another book that I get on a regular basis is published by the Schumacher College, the same community. It's called Resurgence and Ecologist, Reconnecting with the Living Earth. And these magazines are published every quarter. And this magazine actually is from last year, from the beginning of last year. And the title of that, the theme of that is Hope and Enchantment. And I want to pick an article that I found, and it's titled New Consciousness. And as we live our lives today, most of us, even though our lives are busy, we are meeting commitments, there's a lot of stress, um, a lot of things happening around us, existential issues from nuclear threat or nuclear war rather, to extreme weather events, to the violence that we are seeing, the incredibly sad violence that we are seeing around the world, and it at the end of the day, there's this at the back of our minds. There's this feeling of anxiety and fear and sadness about all this, the culture wars, the separations, the it seems like everybody's angry at each other, everybody's blaming each other, and there's a scarcity mentality that takes us to the place of fear, stuck on the left hemisphere of the brain. How do we get to the right hemisphere of the brain and become whole brain, as Ian McGilchrist talks about? And I found this article fascinating in that context. And it's written by the editor of Resurgence and Ecologist, Susan Clark, after an interview with thought leader Andrew Harvey, exploring how divine hope can only show up when we show up for the challenges ahead, and to discuss how it will be the emergence of a new consciousness alongside a deeper understanding of being an integral part of the more than that will guide us through the darker places we find ourselves in emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and physically. And I'm going to read a piece of this article. And another quote from here is, if you cultivate divine hope, this outrageous desire to prepare for the best, knowing absolutely how bad the worst is, then something very extraordinary will happen. You will be aligned with the evolutionary will of the divine birth of a new kind of a human race. So that's how radical that we have to become now, because we seem to be coming, even in terms of our existence on this earth is threatened at the moment with everything that's going on, right? And it talks about then linking divine hope with active hope. So it's not wishful thinking, it's also about taking action. And it introduces 5 steps to divine hope. And it's very much aligned with the way I've been doing these sessions, rather these small snippets, mindfulness-based snippets on my YouTube channel. And the first one is you could decide to believe that all the mystics of all the traditions are not crazy, but the sanest beings who have ever been here, and they all agree on something that's wonderful, which is that all of us are born as an original blessing with divine consciousness and the possibility of extraordinary evolution. So the possibility of that, so the people who I have encountered as monks and priests and nuns who live this spiritual life, who live the life of joy and happiness, but they are also actioning out by showing us the way that it is possible to become spiritually grounded even in our busy lives that we have. And just think about it. In your busy lives, in your busy days, if you can take maybe 10 minutes to half an hour a day just to spend some time in cultivating divine hope, I think if we can do that at an individual level, we can influence that at a community level and a global level too. So how can we start this as an individual, and then spread it as we live and walk the talk? So number 2, start to read some serious and clear books such as the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying, and another book, The Coming of Cosmic Christ by Father Matthew Fox, who I had the good fortune to meet during my Bath University Master's course. And number 3 is start simple spiritual practices. Simpler the better. And this is one of the things that I'm a great proponent of. Focusing on the breath as our life source and getting into a place of meditation, contemplation. So mindfulness practice, being mindful and aware of our surroundings, and then also practice of adoration. And number 4, once you find you're making some significant progress with that practice. So what I propose is for those of us who are just can't seem to find the time to sit down for 5-10 minutes even, don't even go that far. Once you get up in the morning, get out of bed, find a place that you can sit quietly. I call it my sacred spot. Sit for 2 minutes and do that for 21 days, just sitting quietly to see how you can start taming the mind and managing the mind better. And then you can increase that 2 minutes eventually to 5, 10, 15 minutes and evolve that practice. So start slowly, right? So once you find that you're making progress with that practice, choose a sacred physical discipline like yoga, sacred dance. It could be even walking into a forest and feeling what the Japanese call forest bathing. So those are sacred practices that you can really take on board to involve the mind body. It's regenerative. It helps us to ground ourselves again by also making sure that you're aligning the breath with all your physical action too. Number 5, ask yourself, what in all this madness breaks my heart the most? So we need to really focus on what's going on. What am I feeling right now? What am I needing? And what is actually happening to bring that sadness, bring that anxiety to the surface by focusing a light on it, so you can dissipate that negative energy, that those fears, those anxieties that are otherwise percolating and messing our minds up and not allowing us to think clearly. So it then talks about find the answer and you will find the cause that you can champion with a passion and give some of your precious life energy to it. And now you are a sacred activist and serving the divine in the world. So it's not about just going inward, it's also getting out there and actioning out, being active in helping people. So what I'm doing right now is trying to influence people. And so this is an act of active hope in spreading this awareness, this knowledge, this practice. So I invite you to think about this. And I invite you to spend a few minutes every day just by yourself, giving yourself a gift. First of all, if you're not used to this, by sitting down to quiet your mind in a mindfulness meditation, in a contemplation, in a reflective practice, then that once you get a hold of that, then you can start taking the next steps. So be well, be happy.